Hello, hello. So you are thinking about packing up and moving to the Boise, Idaho area, and you're looking to wrap your head around what it really costs to live right here, right now. So today, that is what we are going to be tackling. We get calls every single day from people from out of state who are thinking about packing up and making the move to Idaho. And typically, they call us up with a list of questions. And more often than not, their questions at their core center around our cost of living. And yep, this information that, well, while it isn't the most exciting or sexiest topic by any means, it's definitely important to consider and to just really understand prior to making any big decisions, like say moving to a completely new state. Because yep, even the easiest moves typically entail quite a lot of effort, let alone emotion, stress, and all of that, right? And then you're going to want to be sure you stick around to the end of this video because I'm going to be sharing 3 of the biggest line items that typically really surprise people to learn about our living expenses here. So let's dive into this right now. First up, when it comes to one's cost of living, the largest expense is almost always going to be, of course, housing. In general, across the US, the cost of having a roof over our heads accounts for roughly 35% of our household's monthly income and budget. And while if you haven't yet heard, housing costs across Idaho, and especially in and around the Boise metro area, they've gone up over the past decade, and especially within the past 5 years. Currently here in Boise's Treasure Valley, let's look at what our average sales price is at right now. So for this, I'm grouping together Ada County, which is the county that includes Boise, Meridian, Eagle, Star, and Kuna, and I'm grouping it with Canyon County. And Canyon County is made up of Nampa, Caldwell, Middleton, Parma, and Melba. Currently, our average sales price is sitting just over $575K. And then for those of you who are already eyeballing a specific city in either of these counties, and maybe you're wondering what the average sales price is just in that specific city, here you can see all of the cities in the valley listed out with their average home price. With, the city of Eagle having the highest average of just over $982,000, and then with the lowest, so the most affordable housing being over in Nampa, Caldwell, and Emmett. So going back to our valley's average price point of $575,000, if you're wondering what you could expect to get for that in today's market, and well, this will of course vary depending on many factors such as location, home size, condition, lot size, age, all of those will of course play a part. In general though, for $575K in today's market, you could expect to be able to find a move-in ready 1,800 to 2,600 square foot home with 3 beds, 2 baths, all situated on a standard sized lot. So now let's move on to another closely related cost of living expense. Let's talk about property taxes. And to keep things simple, for this, let's just stick with our average sales price of $575,000. Here in Boise's Treasure Valley, our property taxes and levy rates vary a lot. They vary from city to city and also within cities, so from one geographical area or even just community to another. For example, taxes in Nampa are typically higher than what we see in Meridian or Boise. And then within just the city of Boise, property taxes in the southwest corner tend to be quite a bit lower than what you find in the northeast or southeast areas of the city. And then even some communities that practically border each other can have significantly different property taxes and levy rates, such as Hidden Springs and Dry Creek Ranch. That said, in general, across the valley, it's typically safe to assume you'll be looking at about a 1% property tax rate. And we say that because across the board, most areas here are below that 1% mark. And while I, for one, would much rather see you plan or rather budget a bit high and then find yourself pleasantly surprised when your levy rate is actually less than half of that, right?
So much better.
Yeah. Thanks, Marcie.
So, as an example, if you came to visit and started house hunting and say you flipped out over a home in South Meridian, your levy rate would actually be 0.49%. So yeah, less than half of 1%, right? So those savings would be a pretty nice surprise. Thankfully, here in the Valley, looking up specific areas' levy rates is very easy to do right online. You can do it just by going to the county's assessor's website. Let me quickly walk you through that process right now. Here we are on the Ada County Assessor's website. If you click on this button right here, so Property Search and Online Maps, a search bar will appear, and then you can put in an address for that specific home, and then it'll load all of the tax information on file for that specific property. So not only can you see the assessed value that both the home and the property that it's situated on has, and therefore what you would be taxed on, you can also see how the values have changed over time. And then if you scroll down to the tax district tab, you can see exactly how your levy rate breaks down. So what exactly your property taxes are going to be based on. So in this example, you can see emergency medical services, the school district, the library, mosquito abatement, all of that. And then at the bottom of this section, there is your total levy rate. So for this example, the levy rate is, well, just under 0.5%. That's what this ugly number basically means. And then finally, under that, in the Taxes tab, you can see exactly what the annual property taxes were for that specific house over past years. Now, just to be clear, because this is something that very often confuses people, the levy rate that you see here, so this percentage that you will be paying taxes on, this will be calculated using your home's assessed value, not on your home's market or sales price. And well, this is something that saves us money, as the vast majority of homes here across the valley have assessed values that are lower and sometimes quite significantly lower than the home's market value. So that can definitely help us come tax day. Another factor to keep in mind, assuming you are going to be living in your home as your primary residence, which I am guessing since you are watching this video might very well be the case, then you are going to qualify for Idaho's $125,000 homeowners exemption. So let's see how this all, including that homeowners exemption that I just mentioned, how it would all break down. If you were buying our example home, so a $575,000 home, let's say its assessed value is actually, let's just say $450,000. And if now you're wondering why I dropped the assessed value by $125K, that's because typically, like I just mentioned earlier, our local county assessors usually have recorded assessed values that are roughly 20 to 25% lower than what we see homes actually sell for. And that, of course, is good news because it saves us money. And then let's also assume that you're going to be living in this home as your primary residence. So you're going to be living in it for at least 6 months plus a day. Then that would mean you would qualify for Idaho's $125,000 homeowners exemption. So the assessed value of your home, which was at $450,000, that would go down to $325,000. So now that $325K is your new tax basis. And then using the property levy rate that we just looked up, so this ugly number again, we are just going to multiply the two together to get your estimated property taxes. So for this home, you'd be looking at what? An annual property tax bill of right around $1,620, $1,618. So definitely not too bad. Okay, so next up, let's talk about utilities. And this is an area that typically many of our out-of-state clients are happy to hear about, well, and sometimes are just flat out relieved to hear about, because for Idaho homeowners, property investors, and renters alike, well, the devil's in the details sometimes, right? And things can definitely add up.
Yes. It's annoying.
So first, let's talk about internet and cable. Just like anywhere else, plans can vary for both internet and cable services. Based on this Numio survey, the average monthly internet bill for Boise residents right now is right around $73. This obviously varies based not only on the internet and or cable system selected, but also on the package you go with, because actually at my house, our provider is Silver Star, and we have the largest, fastest package they offer. And we're currently paying right around $99 for the whole month. So it can and will vary depending on your needs. I'll go ahead and post a direct link to this Numio survey I just mentioned in the description of this video, as it really does have some really interesting itemized line items, and it will also allow you to type in another city to see how both of them compare head to head. Okay, so now what about trash and recycling? Here in Idaho, we handle trash a bit differently than many other states in that our trash is not something that is typically wrapped up in our taxes. Instead, it is typically a monthly bill. The City of Boise's garbage and recycling program currently charges residents about $25 to $30 per month. And then in Meridian, we pay our garbage bill along with our water and sewer bill. So all three of those are conveniently grouped together in one bill. And looking at our bill, our trash and recycling ends up being right around $25 for the month. So that's pretty comparable to what you're going to see in the other cities that make up the Treasure Valley, like Star, Eagle, or Kuna. Next, let's look at our electricity costs. According to Electricity Local's website, the average residential electricity rate in Boise is $11.66 per kilowatt hour.
So, what does that mean?
Well, at that cost, it means living in the Boise, Idaho area would mean that you'd be paying roughly 25% less than that of the national average. And then to give you some idea of what kind of dollar amount you could expect to be paying if you were to buy that home we previously talked about, so a 3-bed, 2-bath, roughly 2,200 square foot home, you'd likely be looking at a monthly electricity bill anywhere between $80 to $100. And this would be during the cooler months of the year, so months that you wouldn't be running your AC constantly. And then in the peak of the summer, so when you would be running your AC 24/7, you could expect to be paying more around $150 to $200 per month. Again, though, these are rough estimates, but hopefully will give you some idea of what you could expect. And I should note here, because, well, you clicked on this video for the raw numbers, right? We did just see our power bills go up slightly after Idaho Power asked the Idaho Public Utilities Commission to approve a slight rate increase. So our electric bills are apparently going to be going up by about $5 to $6 a month. Not a huge deal, but something that, well, you might see mentioned in a local news story if you find yourself up in the middle of the night going down a Google rabbit hole of some kind.
I Googled murder.
You Googled murder?
Okay, so now let's move on to water. Boise residents' water bills fluctuate based on time of year and usage rate. During these summer months, we typically see higher water usage, so therefore our bills are a bit higher. Whereas in the winter, our water bill typically goes down. In the summer, bills can range between $75 to $150, and then in the wintertime, the average range is typically substantially lower and closer to $25 to maybe $40. Again, this is going to be based on usage, of course, and I should also point out that if your property doesn't have access to irrigation water, your monthly bills throughout the spring and summer and early fall months will likely be significantly higher. Because yeah, your yard, unless it's entirely rockscaped, will need water. Okay, so now let's dive more into our irrigation water here. For Treasure Valley homeowners with homes on irrigation water, which here in the valley is the vast majority, that can definitely help our pocketbooks pretty significantly. Annual irrigation fees are on average about $125 per year, and that's a one-time annual tax that you'll be paying for your water. And it'll mean that you pretty much have unlimited access to irrigation water between early April through mid to late October for your garden and property landscaping purposes. This past year here in Meridian, that's where my family and I live, so we're about 15 minutes from Boise. We live on a larger lot. It's about 18,000 square feet, so over a third of an acre. And being able to pay just $115 once a year to water our yards, flower beds, hanging baskets, and vegetable garden, all of that, well, that's pretty great. One last thing I want to add here, because it's something we oftentimes see and or hear about happening when people move here from areas where, well, they just had very tight restrictions on water use.
California.
That's where you're from?
While having unlimited access to irrigation water is going to be exciting, we get it, we really do, please resist the urge to overwater. Your lawn really doesn't have to have sprinklers going 8 times a day, and that's even during the peak of summer. And if you overwater, that can lead to problems for both your property as well as your neighbors. So just, try to keep that in mind.
Slow down there, cowboy.
And then if you are thinking about buying a home or a property in an area without access to irrigation water, that will definitely be something that we will want to explore together so we can ensure you know exactly what to expect. Because, well, unless you are thinking about going with full AstroTurf or the Xeriscape route, your landscaping could potentially end up costing several hundred additional dollars a month just to maintain, which, well, for many wouldn't exactly be a fun surprise to discover that first summer in your Idaho home. Now, let's talk about natural gas. Thankfully, across the Treasure Valley, natural gas is easily accessible and largely relied on for heating and cooking. Similar to water bills, gas bills fluctuate largely based on the time of the year and usage rate. During the summer months, it can be as low as $12 to $20 because, yeah, you're certainly not heating up your house at that time of year. But instead, your gas bill is usually just about your water heater and your gas range for cooking. And then during the coldest months, when all you really want to do is hide inside with a great book right next to your fireplace, you could expect to be paying closer to $100 to $120 or more, depending on just how much you love your fireplace and or how many you have in your home. And now, let's talk about sewage. And hey, I warned you at the beginning of this video that this was not going to be the sexiest of topics, but hang in there with me. Okay, so for homes with city sewage in the Boise area, you would be billed at a standard rate plus usage. Currently, the average sewer rate here across the valley is right around $40 a month. But of course, that can vary significantly from family to family due to size, and therefore, of course, usage.
Why is Uncle Arthur always in the bathroom?
Now, let's talk about groceries. And inflation is a thing across the country, and that's even true here in the good old potato state. As of today, studies show that the average 4-member Boise household is spending about $282 per person every month on groceries. So right around $1,100 to $1,200 for the month. Now, for my family, I can straight up tell you that we spend more than that, but I'm not the best when it comes to meal planning for the whole week and doing all that budgeting. It's just not my forte. So for my family of 4, so my husband Andy and our 2 young and quickly growing and sometimes flat out ravenous little boys, we spend probably more around $400 to $450-ish per person on groceries alone. And that's just at the grocery store. So that's not factoring restaurants and dining out and all that. Now, could we spend less? Of course we could, but well.
Don't judge.
Don't care.
And then for what it's worth, just because I was curious and thought you might be as well, I messaged a number of my local friends with similar sized families, and their estimated ranges fell between $300 per person all the way up to more like $800, $900 per person. And again, no judgment either way. We all do our best, right? For what it's worth, most landed right around $350 per person in their house. What's interesting about living in the Boise, Idaho area, and certainly helpful for those on tighter budgets, is that we've got a huge range of grocery stores to choose from. While we have stores like Whole Foods and the Boise Co-op, which are undeniably among the more expensive options, we also have options like Winco and Grocery Outlet. So really, thankfully, that range of options really allows most, regardless of where they land on the income spectrum, to purchase what they need for their families. Okay, so now let's talk about homeowners association fees. Most newer homes in the Treasure Valley were built and continue to be built in communities with CC&Rs and HOAs. Now, of course, not all homes have both or either of these, but in general, many do. So if your home has an HOA, you'll be paying an HOA fee. That fee can be anywhere from a mere $100 per year, which is the lowest I've seen, all the way up to right around $2,200 for the year, which is certainly on the higher end and what you'd find if you were looking to be in one of the biggest master plan communities, those with multiple swimming pools, tennis and basketball courts, community gyms, soccer fields, just really all the bells and whistles. Or if you are thinking that you might like to be in a 55 plus community, and if it is one of the newer communities such as Trilogy Valor over in Kuna, well then you should know that while the HOA fees there are right now right around $5,000 for the year, which is of course very high comparatively, you should also know, and this is something that we actually just learned last week with some clients, that here in a few years the annual fees for residents there will be hiked to nearly $7,200 for the year, which is crazy high by Idaho standards, but apparently worth it for some retirees who want to enjoy their golden years in a resort-inspired community embracing that lifestyle.
To each his own.
In general, though, the average HOA fee for a neighborhood with, the basics, so a community swimming pool and maybe a couple other shared amenities, so maybe a playground and a jogging path, so a nice community with some but not all of the crazy amenities. In general, those communities tend to have HOA fees that are right around $500 to $700 for the year. Okay, so now let's talk about income tax. Because yes, Idaho does have an income tax and it is currently right at 5.8%. So this is higher than many often initially anticipate. If you're considering moving here from, say, Texas, Florida, or Alaska, which do not have income tax, that 5.8% flat rate probably doesn't sound too great.
It's annoying, isn't it?
And then on this note, we also have sales tax. Our sales tax is 6%. So yes, checking out at Costco or Target, which, well, let's face it, both are always more expensive than we think they're gonna be, right? I came in for soap, cottage cheese, and I don't know, toilet paper. How did my bill end up being over $400? But anyhow, living in Idaho will mean you'll be paying a 6% sales tax. I was at Shields with my 8-year-old last weekend, and he was buying some football cards with some leftover birthday money that was apparently just burning a hole in his pocket. And when he was calculating what he could afford and what he was gonna buy, I reminded him of our 6% sales tax, and he just stopped dead in his tracks. And he's like, wait, I don't have to pay sales tax. I'm 8. Sorry, Buttercup. Everyone is taxed, even those hardworking second graders. And then, yep, that 6% is even applied to groceries, which definitely threw me when I moved here almost 20 years ago and surprises many of our clients who move here from out of state too. And now on a similar note, another thing we're often asked about is whether we have local or Mello-Roos sales tax here. And while there are a few areas in the state of Idaho that can see additional local sales taxes of up to 3%, you typically only find those additional taxes up in the more destination and resort areas like Sun Valley, Ketchum, and McCall. I'll put a link in the description of this video for you to check out so you can see all of the Idaho cities that currently have an additional local sales tax. Again, this is something that we are often asked about from newcomers moving here from areas such as the Bay Area, where they are apparently seeing an overall sales tax burden due to the addition of the Mello-Roos tax of right around 11%. Thankfully, that is not the case in Boise or really anywhere in Idaho. And now let's talk about gas prices. Just like everywhere else, gas prices vary widely across cities and counties. As of today though, our average gas price here is right around $2.89. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because, well, yeah, as we all know, gas prices can and do change, and sometimes rather quickly, right? Just know that in general, gas prices across the Boise, Idaho area tend to be right around the national average. But then for our clients who move here from, say, California or Washington, well, they're significantly lower here in Idaho. I'll put a link to a great website that one of our fabulous relocation clients introduced us to called Gas Buddy. I'll put that in the description of this video for you to check out later. And now let's talk about childcare costs. This is obviously a big one for all of us who have kiddos because, well, they sure can be expensive little buggers, can't they? And, well, at the same time, there's nothing more personal than our kiddos and their safety and care. In the Boise, Idaho area, childcare costs for children under the age of 6 typically range from about $1,000 to $2,200 a month. And then infant care typically ranges between $1,600 to $2,600 a month. There are obviously various childcare options, from care centers to at-home nannies to at-work nurseries. So for this one, it can, and it will, vary largely on your unique situation and childcare needs. Okay, so now let's tackle one cost of living factor that often really surprises people to learn about. Let's talk about our car insurance here. And what you'll end up paying will of course vary a bit based on your vehicle, how many vehicles you have, your driving record, age, all of those factors. But just to give you some idea of what to expect, my family and I, we own 4 vehicles, and they are all grouped into one annual package, with one of them being a relatively upscale, nice SUV, and then on the other end, one of them being our commuter Volkswagen Passat that runs on diesel. Having them all grouped together in the same package, and then, well, just dividing by 4, we're currently paying about $600 annually per vehicle. Most of our clients who are moving here from states such as Texas or California are shocked to hear that number.
Seriously? Seriously.
And then another big surprise that many newcomers have shared with us is in regard to public transportation, because, well, here in the Boise, Idaho area, we really do not have a big public transportation system here. So either you are going to be Ubering a lot, because yes, we definitely have Uber here, which sometimes surprises people to hear, but yes, we have Uber. Or if you are planning on relying on the bus systems, so here in the Valley, our bus system is Valley Regional Transit, you could do that. And it's gonna be cheap, as well, you can see here, $1.25 for one ride or $2.50 for an all-day pass. But if you are planning on relying on that, please note that your commute is most likely going to take you 5 to 10 times longer than you might expect. Because yep, our public transport system is just a fraction of what many other cities have. So be prepared to be waiting a little bit and bring a book. And then another thing that really tends to surprise people when they move here is in regard to our registration fees. Currently at the DMV, we can get our 2-year registration dialed for just about $190, which is apparently significantly lower than what they see in many neighboring states. And then the cost of license plates is also a part of that overall vehicle registration fee, which apparently also isn't the case in some other states. And then just in case you are all about those personalized or vanity plates, they have an initial fee of $25 followed by a $15 annual renewal fee. Or if you want to get a specialty plate such as an Idaho wildlife plate or one of those, they have an initial fee of $35 with a $25 annual renewal fee. Okay, so what do you think? How do our cost of living expenses compare to wherever it is that you're currently watching this from? Or if you're already living here in Idaho and you have something you want to add, post it in the comment section. I would love to hear it, and I know other viewers would too. And hey, if this is your first time visiting our channel, and I say our because my husband Andy and I are a husband and wife team and pretty much just a package deal. When you call us up, you get both of us throughout the entire process. So please take 2 seconds to jot down our number so you have it on hand when you are ready to take that next step. And then if you haven't already, please take a sec to hit that little subscribe button so we can stay in touch and you can see new videos when we post them. Or maybe you aren't quite ready to reach out and start a conversation with us, but you want to continue to learn about what living in the Treasure Valley is like. We have a completely free, no strings attached relocation guide that you can download and peruse through at your leisure. I will link to that in the description of this video as well. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you next time.